Hey guys, welcome back. It's going to be the 2nd of November when this airs, and I know on the 5th of November you guys have Bonfire Night, and I only know a little bit about it just from one of the subscribers, G Balmer, kind of told me a little bit about it, and that I should do a video around the 5th. Um, I guess the movie V for Vendetta kind of has a little bit to do with it, but it was like some Catholics that tried to kill the Protestant king, and it was thwarted. I think. Um, so he was saying, I have the message here pulled up, that you guys do like fireworks, have some mulled wine, hot dogs, stuff like that, bonfires. But yeah, I guess it was from 1605 when that happened. So, anyways, I found this video from the Nostalgia Brit here on YouTube, and it is called Penny for the Guy, Remembering Bonfire Night. So, I will link that. I will link this video in the description of my video, along with a link to Patreon and a link to how you can support the channel here on YouTube. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it, guys.
There was a definite shift you could feel in the air, a change that crept in on the chilly morning breeze. It always arrived just as the vibrant greens of summer had surrendered, leaving behind a landscape painted in the glorious decay of autumn. The world turned to brilliant gold, deep orange, and burnt copper. The air itself felt different. It grew crisp and clean, carrying the earthy, nostalgic scent of damp soil and decaying leaves after a rain shower. This was autumn in Britain, and for every child growing up in the 70s and early 80s, this seasonal shift was a profound signal. It wasn't just about winter coats and shorter days. It was a countdown. It carried the growing anticipation of the one night of the year you were actively encouraged to play with fire, a night steeped in history and smoke. This was Bonfire Night. Long before grand organized public displays with safety barriers and hefty entrance fees became the norm, the 5th of November was a much more personal, much more chaotic affair. It belonged to the back gardens of terraced houses, to the quiet suburban streets where the air grew thick with the unique, sulphurous smell of fireworks, and the whistle of homemade rocketry echoed between the rooftops. And at the very heart of it all was a simple, almost pleading mantra that every child knew by heart. Penny for the guy. It was so much more than a plea for loose change. It was the secret password into a tradition stretching back centuries. A strangely British celebration of fire, gunpowder, and treason. It was a folk memory of a dark plot from 1605, a story of Guy Fawkes and his failed attempt to blow up Parliament. A grim piece of history that somehow we had transformed into a nationwide festival of flames, family, and delight. The preparations for Bonfire Night didn't begin in a brightly lit supermarket aisle. They began in the quiet, dusty corners of domestic life. The garage that smelled of oil and cut grass, the spooky attic, or the deepest recesses of the wardrobe under the stairs. The mission was singular and sacred: to create the guy. This was a proud, collaborative, and often competitive ritual. The hunt began for Dad's old clothes, a pair of worn-out trousers with a hole in the knee, a checked shirt that had faded past the point of respectability. Siblings would argue over which items would look most realistic. These garments were then carefully stuffed, not with straw, but with the most readily available and authentic material. A dense wadding of old newspapers, the previous week's Daily Mirror and The Sun, filled with stories of strikes and soap opera scandals, were scrunched into tight balls, packed firmly into sleeves and trouser legs. until our creation had a convincing, if rather lumpy, human shape. The details were paramount. Feet were tied into a pair of scuffed-up boots. Hands, often a pair of mum's old marigolds or dad's gardening gloves, were safety pinned to the cuffs. But the most crucial part, the very soul of the guy, was a hastily drawn grimace on an old pillowcase would do in a pinch. But the gold standard was a flimsy plastic Guy Fawkes mask from the local newsagent, held in place by a fragile piece of elastic that always seemed to snap. With its impossibly rosy cheeks, curling black mustache and sinister grin, Britain's most famous traitor was reborn and ready for his final tour. Once complete, he was formally placed upon his transport, a rickety old pram that had long since been retired, or a borrowed wheelbarrow. And then the procession began. We'd wheel the guy around the neighbourhood streets, positioning him at strategic locations like the corner shop, our voices piping up to greet every passerby. "Penny for the guy, mister!" It was a lesson in micro-commerce. You learned to spot the soft touches. A 2p coin was standard. A 10p coin was a jackpot. Every coin that clinked into the rusty biscuit tin was a small victory, a tangible contribution towards the greater treasure, the fireworks. The firework run was a momentous occasion, a pilgrimage. The whole family would troop down to a local newsagent or an ironmonger's, a shop that for 50 weeks of the year smelled of metal and wood polish, but for 2 weeks in autumn was transformed into a glittering arsenal. Boxes of fireworks were stacked high behind the counter, their packaging a lurid and thrilling promise of the adventures to come, with illustrations of dragons, spaceships, and epic explosions. A standard or Brock's selection box was the holy grail.
Guys, I just wanted to stop this for a second. This could very well be an AI video. I'm not sure. I think we've watched some of these before, and I think you guys usually say that and kind of talk about some of the images being American. I did notice it on the newspaper there. Probably because like America is obsessed with fireworks. So I'm sure some of the images they were trying to pull up were American. That's okay. Like I'm just kind of learning the history of this, and if he's wrong about that stuff, let me know. But it's just kind of giving me the idea of what it is and the history of it and how you guys celebrate it. I'm not super concerned about an image of fireworks or a newspaper.
We'd press our noses against the glass, staring at the boxes, reading the exotic names, the Vesuvius fountain, the traffic light, Jack in the Box. But the two things every child truly coveted were the rockets, with their long, elegant wooden sticks that promised to soar into the heavens, and of course, the sparklers. A box of sparklers was a promise of holding actual magic in your hand. Bringing the box of fireworks home was like transporting a case of unstable dynamite. It was stored somewhere high and safe, on top of a wardrobe in the back of a cupboard, a place of reverence and danger. Dad would solemnly read the firework code printed on the box, a list of dire warnings that we mostly ignored. We didn't hear the danger. We only heard the promise of bangs and whistles and brilliant, beautiful light, and a magical night that was now almost within our grasp. As dusk began to bleed into true darkness on the 5th of November, a different kind of energy took over the neighborhood. In back gardens across the country, the moment had arrived. The Bonfire, a project that had often been weeks in the making, stood as a magnificent combustible sculpture. It wasn't just a pile of sticks, it was a layered history of the past year's garden waste, the lumpy old sofa that finally gave up the ghost, the broken fence panel and countless cardboard boxes. There was a quiet pride in having the biggest, most impressive bonfire on the street. Neighbours would start to drift out of their back doors, drawn by the shared sense of occasion. Then came the ceremonial moment. Dad, assuming the solemn role of firemaster, would approach the pyre. There was the distinct, slightly forbidden smell of paraffin as he doused the base. A hush would fall over the small crowd. A single match was struck, and in the breathless quiet, you'd hear the whoosh as the flames greedily took hold, licking their way up the pile. A wave of intense, primal heat would wash over everyone, pushing you back, your face glowing in the sudden, brilliant light. And then, the final act for our silent guest of honor. The guy, having fulfilled his duty of collecting pennies, was hoisted high and placed reverently on top of the pyre. He was a silent king, surveying his fleeting, fiery kingdom for just a moment before being consumed by the flames. With the bonfire roaring, it was time for the feast. This wasn't a meal of fine china and table manners, it was a glorious, messy feast of fire and foil. Jacket potatoes, which had been wrapped tightly in silver foil earlier in the day, were unceremoniously tossed directly into the glowing embers at the edge of the fire. You'd have to fish them out later with a long stick, juggling the burning hot parcel from hand to hand. Breaking through the charred, blackened skin to the fluffy white interior was a taste of pure triumph. Sausages, skewered on long, specially sharpened sticks, were held over the flames. It was a test of patience. Hold them too high and they wouldn't cook, too low and they'd be blackened in an instant. They always ended up slightly burnt, and they had never tasted better. Flasks were opened, releasing steam into the cold air, hot chocolate for the kids, thick and sweet, and maybe a cup of hot soup for the adults. And the treats. There were the toffee apples, a dental dare encased in a shell of hard, blood-red sugar that threatened to glue your teeth together forever. For some, especially in the north, there was parkin, a dark, sticky gingerbread cake made with oatmeal and black treacle. It was dense, comforting, and the perfect spicy antidote to the cold night air. Then, with bellies full and faces flushed from the heat, Dad would make the solemn announcement he'd been waiting all evening for. Right, time for the fireworks! This was the main display, a slightly chaotic but utterly thrilling back garden show. Dad was the firework master, the sole pyrotechnician, armed with a box of matches and often a smouldering piece of touch paper, or more likely, the end of a lit end of a cigarette. The empty milk bottles, saved for weeks, were lined up on the lawn, becoming the launch pads for the precious rockets. There was a beautiful, comical unpredictability to it all. The Catherine wheel, nailed a bit too tightly to the fence post, would fizzle and smoke promisingly before refusing to spin, content to just burn a permanent black circle into the wood. A Roman candle would spit out a few colourful, glowing
I've never seen that before, shockingly. That's awesome. I'm not like a huge fireworks person. I liked it when I was a kid, but now it's like just like the dogs go crazy and stuff. And you know what? I did want to let you guys know that I am planning to watch some more of these videos. I'll probably watch at least another one or two of them. Get you one out for the 5th. But I do have some videos saved that are actually from bonfires there, and there's one that I remember a guy walking around with like a end table that's on fire. So I think I have two of them saved that you guys have sent me. So we'll get to those. So like I said, if some of this isn't like authentic, or you guys are like, oh no, that's not what it is, that's not what happens, like I will watch more this week, and I'll see actual events that are from over there. So no worries.
stars, often far lower than you expected. But then, a rocket would launch perfectly. You'd hear the thump of its launch, the triumphant whistle as it soared into the sky, and then you'd all crane your necks back, waiting for the final, satisfying, echoing bang that made the neighbour's dog start barking. The sheer, startling noise of a banger thrown onto the patio was a thrill all of its own. But the real magic, the part that belonged entirely to us kids, was handheld. It was the sparkler. Dad would light the end with his cigarette, and it would suddenly erupt in a shower of brilliant, fizzing silver sparks. For 60 glorious, magical seconds, you were a wizard. You were told to wear gloves. You were told not to touch the glowing hot wire at the end, but you barely heard it. You were too busy writing your name in the darkness, watching the letters hang in the air for a fraction of a second, breathing in the strange, metallic, magical smell. Inevitably, the last firework would fizzle out. The final rocket would explode, its echo fading into the cold, clear night. The box, once a treasure chest full of promise, was now just a sad collection of spent cardboard tubes. The brilliant, violent bursts of light were over. The bonfire, once a roaring, hungry giant, would slowly tame itself. It would sigh and settle, collapsing into a glowing, breathing mound of embers. The intense heat of the flames subsided, and you could feel the raw chill of the November air begin to creep back in, making you pull your collar up. The faces that were once lit by dramatic flashes of colour were now just quiet silhouettes against the dying orange glow of the embers. The night was over, but it stayed with you. It stayed in the potent, pervasive smell of smoke. It was a smell that worked its way deep into the fibres of your coat, into your hair, into your skin. It was the first thing you smelled when you woke up the next morning, a ghostly reminder of the night's festivities that you would carry with you to school. Before heading inside, there was one last ritual: staring into the fire. We would find a long stick and gently poke at the heart of the embers, watching as a galaxy of tiny sparks would swirl up into the darkness. It was a quiet, hypnotic, and reflective moment after the noise and chaos. Looking back, it was a strange and wonderful tradition, wasn't it? A chaotic mix of history, community, and a healthy dose of backyard danger that seems almost unthinkable today. In an age of organized, ticketed events, the memory of these small personal celebrations feels like a dispatch from another world. It was a collective act of defiance against the encroaching darkness and cold of winter, a night to gather with family and neighbors and make our own light, our own warmth. It was the magic of the bonfire, the slightly terrifying thrill of the firework, and the simple, unforgettable joy of holding a sparkler in your hand and for just a moment writing your name in the stars. And so that was our bonfire night, a memory forged in smoke and silver sparks. But of course, that was just one back garden on one November night. Now I'd love to hear about yours. What was the one firework you always looked forward to? Was it the majestic whoosh of a rocket or the simple handheld magic of a sparkler? And what was the essential food at your family's bonfire? Jacket potatoes, sticky toffee apples, or something else entirely? Share your memories down in the comments below. It's always a pleasure to read them and relive those moments together. If this journey back in time...
That was a good video. For me, you guys might have issues with it, but as somebody who didn't know a whole lot about it, like I think it was interesting. It kind of gives you an idea of like the feeling. It touched a little bit on the history of it, which was helpful to me. Um, the penny for the guy, I've never heard of that stuff other than like you guys telling me. So that was all interesting. And kids were cute putting all that together. But yeah, it sounds awesome. Like it sounds like a really good like way to unite with your fellow um Brits and enjoy yourself. Just kick back, enjoy like a nice fire and fireworks, and eat some delicious food. Um, right now at the grocery store, just because it's like getting around Halloween and autumn. Of course, by the time this video comes up, that'll have passed. But that's kind of when you start seeing like candied apples and caramel apples popping up at the grocery store and stuff. So I've been seeing those for like the last 2 weeks every time I go in. Um, and they're delicious. But yeah, like you said, I just think about like my teeth when I'm eating something like that. So I usually just don't get them. But yeah, it was an awesome video. I'm excited to watch some other ones. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. Let me know in the comments, if there's something they got wrong. I'm sure you will anyway. Let me know what you guys do, with your family to celebrate this. And yeah, I'm excited to watch some more videos about it. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hit like, hit subscribe, share, and yeah, have an awesome, awesome day, guys.